Serious. What is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? Part 2. Story 11. I fell asleep on the couch and got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Once I got there, I realized I didn't have to go. I headed towards the bathroom but decided to turn around and go back downstairs to the couch. When I got there, I saw my body still asleep curled up on the sofa. I don't remember what happened after, and I don't know if it had to have just been a dream, but it still freaks me out to this day to think about it. I mean, that does sound like a dream, especially if you don't remember what happened after. But dreams that feel that real are really creepy. Like, when I dream of places, they're always like half-nonsense caricatures of actual places. The few times when I dream of a place and it looks like it actually looks, man, those dreams really stick with you. Story 12. When I was 17, I had just gotten off my shift at Wendy's and was sitting in the parlor for my ride, and a middle-aged man approached me about a job offer. He asked me questions about my job at Wendy's and then told me about the job he was offering. He said there were other girls and they all lived in a dorm and the job came with benefits. It was in an office setting and other things I don't remember, but the entire time every danger bell in my body was going off full blast. It felt like my body became a vibrator. I don't remember if after the multiple rejections from me he left or if my ride had come and I zoomed out of there. The only thing I can think to this day is, did I almost get S-trafficked? Story 13. Once I was hired to load firewood into my aunt's basement. She lived alone and left the basement door wide open for me while she went out. I usually swing the interior basement door as wide as I can when I walk in, and the door almost never closes completely. But once I heard it close, and when I was about to grab another load, I saw that the deadbolt locked. When I walked, my arms are filled with firewood, so I wouldn't be able to lock it myself. Looked out the window and checked the garage to see if she came home, but she wasn't there. The door itself was enclosed, so there was no wind to shut it. I tried various ways of slamming the door so it would lock by itself, but nothing worked. It's an isolated house, so I would have to have heard something drive up, and it's unlikely someone walked over just to lock the door and leave and time it while I was piling up firewood. And there's wooden steps, so I would have heard someone walking down them. It's the only time I've seen a deadbolt lock itself in my lifetime. Story 14. I once caught the neighbor staring at me outside my bedroom window while I was straightening my hair with no trousers on, and I immediately ducked under the window pane as soon as I saw him. He legit stood in this alleyway that connected the street's back gardens, arms crossed and there for at least 15 more minutes just staring through my window. I even got a picture of it. Pretty sure I was 15. That is definitely creepy, and if you got a picture of him, I hope to hell you called the police or something. Someone who would peep on a 15-year-old like that is someone who needs to be dealt with. Sorry, that came out harsh. No blame on you if you didn't. That stuff can be scary and confusing when you're a teen. I just hope that guy was caught. Story 15. I once woke up in a tent in the middle of the night while camping in the Upper Peninsula with my friends. I heard this dude shouting and screaming about a bear telling it to F off and stuff. Naturally, I woke my buddy up and told him what was up, and he said he could hear it too. We got out of our tent and searched for almost an hour around the campsite and found nothing, then proceeded to find a Red Wings hat that was neither of ours. We took watch turns the rest of the night, and I'm pretty sure he still has the hat to this day. Note: UP is a term used by people familiar with Michigan as the Upper Peninsula, the arrow-looking thing above the mitten. Story 16. Just a normal Saturday night, I was watching TV home alone with my 2 dogs when I heard a banging sound coming from the basement. Legit sounded like somebody was just banging something on the appliances we had down there. Now, there is no access into the basement from down there, only through the upstairs rooms that I was in, and knew nobody could have come in and got past me. So, with this knowledge, I was not as scared as you may think, more curious as to what the heck the noise was. One of the 2 dogs, who is a meathead and who wants to fight everybody, also heard the noise and was now bolting down into the basement to investigate. I get down and see that it's my other dog banging his head into our dryer and chest freezer, which are next to each other. My meathead dog just stood there watching, confused. So I approach my other dog and calm him down, and we all go back upstairs. Now this freaked the heck out of me and upset me, as it seems such very strange behavior for my dog to do. Fast forward only 30 minutes or so, the banging starts again. I instantly look over to my dog, but he's laid down, but now also aware of the noise downstairs. We ran down into the basement, and it is Meathead now banging his head in between the appliances. Again, I now calm Meathead down, and we all go back upstairs. Nothing has ever happened again since that night 3 years ago now, so that ruled out brain tumors, which is what I read online about why maybe dogs bang their heads. But 2 dogs suddenly on the same night and it only affecting one of them at any given time? 3 years and the 3 of us never talk about that night, lol. Edit, wow, thanks for all the awards and upvotes. To answer a few questions, yes, I have posted this story before. I have a very normal life, and this story is just way out there, but legit truthful to my otherwise mundane life. A few folks said it might have been a rodent treat toy they were after. No, they were frenzied and hyperventilating. When they get things stuck under anything, they just cry and get me to get their stuff. I guess it boils down to just knowing your dog. I know instantly from their body language just what the deal is, but that night, I have never seen them so frenzied and upset. Also, it is otherwise a very nice basement, as basements go. I have never had a pest problem down there or in any other part of the house. Somebody mentioned that if it only happened 3 years ago, why did I not make a video out of it? My first instinct was to help my dogs to stop them from harming themselves. At no point were my first thoughts to go and grab my phone to capture the moments on film. Really surprised I have to mention that one, but people, keyboards, warriors. I mean, I would still kind of bank on a rodent or something. Just because you have a nicer basement and no history of rodent problems doesn't mean one didn't find its way inside, and a dog might react different with a rodent than with a treat or something. Still, who's to say? Story 17. I apologize for grammar or spelling mistakes. There was a kid in another class at my school in 6th grade that was a genius. I don't mean like, oh, he's really smart because doesn't need to do the homework and still gets hundreds. Like, he was doing advanced calculus with a local college professor after school. This kid was smarter than everyone. So one day our computer system for the entire school goes down. I was in a poorer area at the time, so this was normal. This has occurred many times, so normally it would affect us because we barely use laptops and such. The only class that was affected was the computer class. This kid was in computer class. 3 or so hours later, when I'm in class with him during social studies, 3 guys with FBI jackets on and our local chief escort him out of the building. We were told nothing, but parents were told nothing. It had never hit the news. To this day, we have no clue what he did. Except every single teacher I've asked about this says they were also told nothing. I haven't seen the kid since, and I can't find a trace of him going to any other school or ending up in trouble. He just fell off the face of the earth with his parents. Yeah, I forgot to mention that the parents also disappeared and no one really looked for them after a month or so. Still think about that kid. Story 18. I woke up in the bath at a very specific time, like 5:45. Twice. 10 years in between. Water was getting cold, I was naked, no memory of getting there, some fragments of like seeing my own hand turning on the tap. No drugs or alcohol or even medication involved. The worst thing was the fear. When I woke up, I felt an inexplicable, almost primordial dread. Lasted for hours. I was shaking, couldn't function. Still freaks me out thinking about it. Might have been 3 times, I can't remember properly. I still get the shakes from the memory. Sounds like the most infrequent sleepwalking I could imagine, but still has some of the signs. I've never somnambulated myself, but I had a friend who occasionally did, and this sounds similar. However, seems odd that it's only happened twice. Might be worth a sleep study, but who knows if they'll find anything. Story 19. I was about 10 when this took place, in my early 30s now. I remember it was well into late night hours, and I saw my grandmother was standing at the front screen door looking outside. She was talking to someone. I saw she was talking to my dad. I couldn't see my dad's face because he was facing away from her. He was shirtless. He had a very large, distinct mole in the middle of his back, so I knew it was him. He was mumbling something I couldn't understand. My grandmother was telling him something along the lines of, if you love them so much, why did you go and do this? My mom wasn't there with us to see this. She had left moments before after she got the call letting us know my dad had been driving drunk and hit a mule on the highway. My dad was in the hospital hanging on to life. Story 20. I was deployed to Iraq and we stayed in a former prison in Baghdad. During the nights, we would see and hear strange things. The base at this time only had soldiers, but we would hear children playing from inside the prison. One day we decided to dig deeper to see where the kids were. When we finally found where the noise was coming from, we found a room with the ceiling caved in. We didn't find any kids, but found kids' books, toys, and kids' clothes. Everything looked like it wasn't moved in weeks. We continued to hear the kids and the year we spent there. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 21. I've shared this before, but I still think it's an interesting story. I was exploring the area behind my house shortly after we moved in. The area back there had once been a small quarry that had since filled with water. It was a pit of pond that supposedly went straight down 60 feet if you stepped into it. I was walking along the edge and I came across a backpack filled with old video game cartridges and a set of clothing just laying on the ground. They were for the N64 and we found this around 2004, so they were outdated. Next to it was a set of clothing. The clothes were laying on the ground, spread out pants and shirt, and it looked like someone laying down. They looked like they'd been there a long time, same with the backpack. I told my parents and they called the cops. There had been no reports of missing children or anything in the area. We never got an explanation, but it was weird. Edit. Just to answer some questions, I don't think it was a prank. While we were new to the neighborhood, we were renters. Also, most of our neighbors were elderly. This happened in a rural Virginia town, and I can't imagine anyone wasting cartridges like that since most kids were lucky to have an N64. No people, adult or child, had been reported by families or the neighborhood as missing for years. They never searched the quarry because they never had any reason to think there was something wrong. My sister and I went out there every day for a year or so and just avoided that spot because it was creepy. As far as I know, they're still out there. I mean, maybe it's just a weird kid. I know it sounds like I'm joking, but honestly, kids do some strange things. Maybe it was like a fort for some kid and they set it up like that to keep their treasures or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. And yes, very creepy. Story 22. I was driving home from work on a long, somewhat dark road. I'll admit I was tired and cold and just wanted to get home. Speed limit was 60 miles per hour and I was doing close to 70. Suddenly a girl with long blonde hair, a black coat with brown fur on the hood, and jeans just showed up in front of my car. I knew there was another car to my left up ahead, but it was black and all I saw was that it was stopped before I saw her. I managed to maneuver around her. I was freaked out. I turned to a side street and stopped to figure out what was happening. Then a tall guy with a black coat and short hair gets out of the driver's side of the stopped car, grabbed her, dragged her to the car while she was fighting him, and put her back in the car. I called the police and gave them the description of the car and the direction it took off in. I never heard anything about it, and I have not stopped thinking about her since. It's been 2 years. Edit. Just in case anyone is curious or could even know something, the location was Lincoln, Rhode Island, USA, next to the high school. February 2019. The car was a new black sports, maybe car with a taillight going all the way across the back of the car. George Washington Highway. Story 23. I was putting my daughter to bed and she was talking about her godmother because we were reading a book that her godmother had gotten her. Her godmother died in 2019 of breast cancer. She was my very best friend, more like a sister, and she doted on my daughter. We are reminiscing about her, and my daughter's twinkle light she has on her ceiling starts going off. They have multiple settings, and they are on the rainbow setting. Not too weird, maybe they have a short or something. I go to turn them off, they aren't plugged in. I figure it's my friend saying hi. She loved rainbows. I'm not superstitious, but she promised to stick around and haunt us. I find it comforting. Those lights still go off every now and then. Story 24. I had a schnauzer that could hear a cat stalk across a Persian rug. The slightest noise could wake her from a slumber and set off her constant barking. She made a great tent companion while on backpacking trips. Bears, raccoons, and skunks would all get fair warning if they came within range of our campsite. One morning, we woke up from a night without interruptions in the backcountry of southwest Colorado. And I found my tent's central guideline was no longer staked down by the aluminum stake that I had used, but instead by a piece of aspen branch that had been carved into what looked like a tiki statue. Nothing too ornate, but a snarling face with teeth had been carved from the bark, and it had previously been heated in a fire to give it a brown color. My dog didn't make a sound, and I apparently slept harder than I thought. I scrambled out of the tent and looked around the small alpine lake and saw no other campers nor any sign that people had been around. Cut my trip short and hauled butt the 8 miles back to my car. Not a single other car in the lot of the trailhead. Dang, see, that is a pretty wild story. This doesn't feel like something someone would make up. Then again, maybe it just isn't something I would think to make up. Still, I wouldn't know how to interpret that either, so I say smart move getting out of there. Story 25. Well, not the scariest thing ever, but when I was 11, my family and I moved to another town because of my dad's job. We were only going to stay there for a year, and thankfully we were given a house in a closed community of about 20 houses made for Army officials and their families. So one day my parents are out, and they take my baby sister, my older sister is in a friend's house, and I'm left alone with our dogs for like 2 hours. I was playing in my room when I remember that the black socks for my Monday uniform, kind of like a suit you wear on Mondays, are drying in the backyard. I go there with my dog and utter out loud, "I wish there was something to do." And not a moment later, I hear some young voice say very clearly, "Then let's play." I turn around to see my normally hyperactive Golden sitting looking at me like nothing has happened. I freak out immediately and ran upstairs to my parents' bedroom. I turn on the TV and hide under the covers until my family arrived. They saw me sweating, scared, and paranoid at this point. They never figured out what happened, but try to make me feel better. Now, the part that freaks me out is that each of the houses in the community was surrounded by 3-meter-tall cinder block walls. The place where my socks were next to was a wall separating from another house, one that had no children. The other house to the left was over 20 meters away and behind another wall, and the wall behind my house separated us from nothing but a steep hill. There was no one who could have said that, and to this day it freaks me out every time I think of it. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.